This morning in the Atlanta airport, no one's missing a meal on Mac Wilburn's watch. With 11 restaurants to serve passengers, he's got dining for every destination. And it all started when Mac talked with First Horizon Bank about opening a franchise in the airport. Now it's open for business and cleared for takeoff. First Horizon Bank. Let's find a way. Go to firsthorizon.com/Mac. First Horizon Bank, member FDIC.
Watching the Super Bowl is one thing, but could you imagine playing in it? Today we're going to talk about the Super Bowl, how people market with it, some of the best commercials, and what we think is coming up for tomorrow. The best thing? We have Joe Hamilton here, who was a Super Bowl championship with the Tampa Bay Bucks, but also was a runner-up for the Heisman. Two things just unbelievably. And to be real, he got screwed on that one. He should have won it. All that and more today on the Marketing Madmen.
They say marketing is a madman's game. So now we turn it over to the Marketing Madmen with Nick Constantino and Trip Job.
Happy Saturday. Trip Job and Nick Constantino here with the Marketing Madmen, and it is Super Bowl week. It is tomorrow, and what better way to talk about marketing, but more importantly about the Super Bowl, is with a local hero, someone you've heard a lot, Joe Hamilton of Georgia Tech fame and the Tampa Bay Bucks, and you were in the 20 years ago?
Yeah, 20 years ago, man. Great feeling. When you look back on it, you get memories, and during that time, you want to make sure you hear from everybody that has Super Bowl experience that make sure you cherish the moments. Make sure you remember the moments and don't have it move too fast. And now I'm able to, because I didn't let it move too fast, look back on it, remember where I was, remember what was happening. You know, I had a grudge for a long time because I was a bad teammate. I was a bad son or a brother because I didn't say hut in the Super Bowl. Brad Johnson was the starter, and because I'm a quarterback, it had too much pride. Too much pride. I'm like, I don't want that ring. I don't want to wear that ring because I didn't have a part to do with it. But shortly thereafter, my dad straightened me out, and he told me the good things that I tell everybody now, and I was totally wrong. I don't know why I went through that phase for about, a year, feeling bad. But right now, I'm just...
I think, isn't the NFL in a big culture revolution now where they're trying to say that it's not just the players or the coaches, it's the Cowboys. They're trying to say that you have to be all about that culture. So right. I think that I feel like your mentality might have been different today than it was, but I agree with you that you deserve to wear that.
Yeah, ring. Absolutely. Yeah. No, I do not feel that way now. And it's almost like a quarterback thing, so to speak. Only one person can actually play at the quarterback, and you don't feel that you were in the game and making an impact. But being on the scout team, being a good teammate, all those things are very important.
And you started your whole career in college. You were a runner-up to the Heisman Trophy. I mean, there's lots of other things at play here as to why it might have been frustrating to see Brad Johnson in front of you, and I get that.
But it's the pinnacle, and there's only, guess what? There's only 90 guys to get to walk between those lines.
Oh, no doubt about it, and it makes me appreciate it more, and I love Brad Johnson. He did an outstanding job, and I'm not even saying that I should have started. I know better than that. But now I look back at it, one of my all-time favorites and top 5 quarterback, Dan Marino. What would he do to have one ring? Yeah. And I'm not him, but I do. But I do have a Super Bowl ring. So I'm very, very, very grateful. And this time of year, when the Super Bowl is coming up, I'll get very excited.
That's awesome. Dude.
Yeah. What type of memory? I mean, what is this time of year? What does it bring back to you? There's certain things you look forward to.
Yeah, I look forward to the day leading up to it. I remember, like on a Wednesday, like today, you will be game planning, and you will be going home or going back to the hotel where your family and friends are there. You're going back to see fans that's waiting for your autograph, and you're also thinking about the game plan. That's on a Wednesday. On a Thursday, same thing. Now curfew is starting to dwindle. When you first get there on a Monday, you have no curfew. Tuesday curfew is about 11:30, 12.
Yeah.
Wednesday is probably 11:30, 12. Friday, Saturday, it's 10, it's 9. It's getting game time. And all during that time, people are coming in. You're hearing about the Beyoncés. You're hearing about the people that are having
distraction,
parties,
to say the least,
and distractions. So when you have guys that's been there before and able to compartmentalize the fun, because you do want to have fun. You don't want to distance yourself from being able to enjoy your experience, but you want to win the game.
What about the jitters? What about the jitters, man? I mean, you're still all things said. We saw it in San Francisco when they were playing in there in the NFC Championship. Like, if something goes down, you got to be ready. Yeah. So you almost have as important a job, if not more important, because the last thing you want to do is turn over and lose a lead. Yeah. So did you have the jitters?
Well, the jitters, what you talk about is right now until the game. When the ball is kicked, there are no jitters.
Yeah.
Now you're going to showcase to the world what we've been practicing on and showcase why we're the better team. But leading up to it, you have jitters because nobody wants to lose. Nobody remembers second place.
Yeah.
So most of the jitters are coming from the fear of losing or not performing is where you get your anxiety from.
That makes sense.
Or the referee, flipping the coin.
Yes, those are the times that you're not settled. You're not settled.
You don't have control.
No, you don't have control.
You don't have control of that situation, so that makes a ton of sense.
Perfectly
What was different about that team? So on that team, it is not easy to win the Super Bowl. We all know that, right? So 2 or 3 things about that team that got them to the pinnacle of sports and to win it that year.
Man, that's a great question because this is a team that's was made by somebody that wasn't there, or was created or developed by somebody that wasn't there. And I'm talking about Tony Dungy.
Sure. Yeah.
Tony Dungy built that team, went far with that team, the defense, Hall of Famers throughout. And left to go to Indianapolis, and then that's when the Bucs traded for John Gruden.
Gruden, right?
Gruden came in and immediately won
the Raiders, ironically.
From the Raiders, and won the Super Bowl, and that was all our team needed was a infusion offensively.
Yeah.
So that team was ready.
Oh,
Warren
man.
Sapp, John Lynch, Derek Brooks, Rondé Barber, Simeon Rice,
Mike Allstott, you had a fullback back then. He was
Booger
a hell of a fullback too.
Keyshawn Johnson.
Yeah. Oh man. Wow.
All those. It was due. It was time. It was almost one of those things. And I'll tell you a real quick, funny story about great coaches and not doing the little things. Coach Gruden just came from the Raiders, where Bill Callahan was his offensive coordinator, line coach. Bill Callahan takes over the Raiders and takes them to the Super Bowl. In his first year, John Gruden is coaching the Bucs. It's the same offense.
Right.
So the Bucs are saying that surely they're going to change their signals because Coach Gruden knows exactly what they're going to do and what they're going to call. They didn't.
Oh man, that's almost a psych out. You feel they're so confident that they didn't even change their signals.
They didn't even change. Rich Gannon was the MVP, put up a lot of numbers.
That.
And now, 4 defensive touchdowns. Rich Gannon threw 5 picks. I named the Hall of Famers defensively, and to a man, those guys said after the game, that was the easiest game they played. Can you imagine already having 4 or 5 Hall of Famers? Top-notch defense, yes.
Knowing the signals.
But knowing the signals as
nerve.
well.
I mean, I thought you could have worked the opposite way. They're so confident.
And on the contrary, Coach Gruden with us spent the whole time trying to make up new signals because he figured that they know our signals because I just came, so we're going to switch it up. So that's a little nugget about why that game was such a decisive blowout.
That is unbelievable.
I'm curious, did you play for Dungy at all? Or was Gruden your first year?
No, I played. Coach Dungy drafted me. Dungy drafted me, gave me a chance, and he was one of those guys that I don't like talking about. And the only reason is because there are not enough superlatives. If I say great, I need another one. He's excellent. If I say excellent, just total. He is what you see, is what you get. Genuine, loves players, loves people, and he's just a big time.
I think he's
made a
big
time impact in my life.
Sometimes you need different leaders for different things, is what it sounds like.
Yes. Oh, yeah. He. The problem with Dungy was is that he they started to ignore his word. He was so trustworthy. Never find anybody as far as being late or missing meetings. And people started to cut corners.
Yeah.
I told you not to park here or go around and park there.
That's a
and all of a
shame.
sudden, because you know he wasn't going to find, you start to go ahead and park there.
You know what it sounds
like? And everybody knows that when you do that, in
one
practice,
person does it, the next guy does it.
And then
it makes its way to the game, offsides,
You're
holding.
absolutely right, Nick.
Doesn't it sound a lot like Rick and Kirby Smart and the conversations we finished up with Georgia, where Rick was the guy, he was the lean on, he was the rock, but you needed that extra edge. And Kirby coming in like the nut job he was, just made that team win.
The
It sounds very
there,
similar.
Yep.
It sounds very similar.
And that's why I think sometimes you just need different times in a business or a sports team's life cycle. Sometimes you just need something a little different.
Yeah,
correct.
And that's to get to the pinnacle again. So what is it about the Super Bowl that makes it what it is? 100 million people, $6 million in spots. What is it that makes it that game? From what you saw from those eyes in front of you, what is it that makes it that game?
To an extent, the world stops, and everybody can have a piece of the pie, so to speak. As a player, I saw it firsthand that your legacy can be made. I saw firsthand that you can catapult your career you can get your name out there as far as winning the Super Bowl MVP. That's on the field. I saw all the opportunities marketing wise for people that's not playing the game. If you're involved in the Super Bowl or you have anything to do with the Super Bowl, if you can provide amenities for the Super Bowl, you can win.
Yeah.
That Super Bowl was one of the biggest things that one time, one Sunday afternoon and that's also what I realized. It's just not the Super Bowl.
Right.
Being to that event, things are happening from 12 all the way till 6:30.
We saw it here when it was here. We had 3 parties going on.
So that Super Bowl, you can capitalize as an athlete.
We had 12,000 people to our party that was 3 miles down the way. It's insane. I love what you said, though, the world stopped.
Yes.
And the world stopped. We are in a world of constant distraction and attention spans dwindling for the one time 150 million people, probably more's eyeballs are fixated and the attention span is on one thing.
And not all of them fixated on the game.
The players.
Yes, exactly.
There are people who want to do other things. And I have not done the Super Bowl in my corporate life, but I have taken people to the Major League Baseball All-Star Game. I've taken them to U.S. Opens and PGA Championships and things like that. And there's so many other things you can do that tie in the athletes earlier in the week, you know, when you have availability. And those are wonderful customer experiences.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's great. It's a great way to do it. Well, let's wind down on this 2-part question, okay? First, not as important, is who's going to win?
Well, I want the Kansas City Chiefs to win. My brother-in-law coaches linebackers there.
Awesome. Okay.
So my sister, my mom, and all of them will be over there in Arizona. But I think the Philadelphia Eagles, they have the better overall team, and that running game is going to wear.
I think that offensive line is going to mitigate Jones and a lot of that stuff. But if Mahomes wasn't hobbled, I think we'd be having a different conversation.
Well, that pass rush is going to get after a 100% Mahomes or a 90% Mahomes. But I want a great game. I want Kansas City to win.
It'll be a good game.
And I want it to be
a good game.
Entertaining game.
We've lost on a lot of people for some reason. Andy Reid going back to Philly is awesome too. And then the last question, most importantly, on a scale of 1 to 10. How excited are you to see Rihanna at halftime? Because I am very freaking excited.
11.
11, right? Riri needs to be out there. Yeah. She's going to be sexy as hell, and it is going to be Apple taking it over for the first time. That is going to be a show.
At one point in time, I was worried about my expectations being too high, but I say it's Rihanna. She's going to
tear that place.
She's going to exceed that.
She hasn't done an album in a while. She hasn't done anything in a while.
Ready.
Yeah,
her child will be watching. Yes.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. And the last couple were pretty good. I mean, I liked, with LL Cool J and Dr. Dre and all last year, so that was fun.
Yes.
But, Joe, thanks so much for joining us,
Thank
man.
you,
It's
guys.
a special week, I know, for you, but for all of us. And really enjoyed having you, giving us your thoughts on the Super Bowl. And all the best to you and, of course, your Georgia Tech boys as well. So
thank you. A trip down memory lane.
Yeah,
pretty good stuff.
All right, you've been listening to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3. We'll be right back and talk about Super Bowl ads.
Mientras trabajas duro por el éxito de tus hijos, algo que no ves los puede estar afectando. Se llama estrés tóxico. Es la manera en que el cuerpo de los niños responde a experiencias difíciles. Aprende cómo ayudarlos en first5california.com.
Now back to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3 FM.
Welcome back to the Marketing Madmen. Trip Job and Nick Constantino here. It really was a pleasure to have Joe Hamilton on and talking about the Super Bowl and what a neat experience. I think it's something we all as kids grew up wanting to do. So it was, it was a kind of great way to hit this weekend and with a big game tomorrow and all. So why don't we go into the fun? We've done this in the past. Last year, I think we kind of did it after we saw the ads. This time is going to be before. But, Nick, let's talk a little bit about, maybe some of your memories, thoughts around, the Super Bowl ads that, hit you. And then we'll get in a little bit to, why some of them were hits. And maybe we can bring it back to, businesses out there that are thinking about running ads and give some examples of what to do, what not to do.
Yeah, I think if you look at this list, we found a list online. There's probably a couple of these, but one thing I see in common is all of these are almost pre-2000, and I think that's for a very specific reason. I think we started going awry a little bit because people felt like they need to capitalize on the value by releasing them early and then playing them in duration afterwards. I think the beauty of the Super Bowl was when you air this, it made such an impact on such an immediate, quick, in-your-face scale that we've lost that a little bit. And as I look back and I start seeing why these moments were chosen and, when they used bigger names and all of a sudden you see Cindy Crawford and Pepsi and these this made a little bit more sense. The modern stuff to me, some stand out. I love the Doritos ones personally, but I think we've lost a little bit of that charm, and I think because people feel more obliged to justify the absurd prices. $6 million?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other piece to it is, back a lot of these that were pre-2000 or early 2000s, really kicked off a campaign. And, we'll talk about some of these. One of the ones I do remember, remember the campaign because it lasted for a long, long time, was number 3, was Wendy's Where's the Beef?
Yeah.
I mean, you remember that for years and years, but I think the beauty of it was it kicked off a campaign that became synonymous with Wendy's probably for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Right now, and not that you need a campaign that's going to run that long because it always had iterations. But I think now people are changing things so quick that sometimes they don't become synonymous and don't have a lifespan.
Yeah. And I think also when these commercials came out, these were not exactly sports marketing yet. Sports marketing didn't really exist the way it was in the 80s.
Right.
This was television. This was a most watched television. And back in the day, you actually had television events like this more frequently. I mean, what was it? The last episode of MASH was like 100 million people, something insane like that. Yeah. I mean, you'd be lucky nowadays if you're non-sports that you pull in 2-3 million people. It's your luckiest day of your life. And MASH was, I'm not kidding, it might have been 70 or 80 million, but it is almost Super Bowl-esque in how many people watch MASH. So these kind of events were created because there was just less to watch and less distraction. Right. So these were TV ads. This has become a little bit more sports marketing now, and they play off of that part of it. So
and let's be real, the companies are doing it well now. They're taking the television ads, and it's not the one medium. It's not the one tactic. They're tying it into digital. They're tying it into maybe it is their YouTube channel,
sure,
and other things that they're using those components of the campaign with, which is, again, we'll get back to some of these as examples, but the way you want to do it.
Nowadays,
you can't just really have that one ad.
Yeah.
And expect to win. I mean, and I know one of your favorites was that case of the one ad.
Yeah, for sure. And look, let's preface this by saying I was 2 years old. So let's not go as far as to say I remember this. But I am very well versed on the Apple-Microsoft battle. I've been a PC guy my whole life. I've read Jobs' biography. Like, I'm very well versed on it. But in 1984, Ridley Scott directed an ad for Apple that was introducing Macintosh. And they aired that ad one time. Imagine paying, I mean, it was probably, what would you say, $800,000, $1 million in the 80s for a Super Bowl, and it was not quite as expensive as today.
Yeah, because the $1 million didn't cross the $1 million threshold until sometime in the 90s, I think.
Okay, so let's call it $500,000. Let's call it $500,000. But Ridley Scott ain't $500,000 to go get him to direct something. The cost to make it, all that stuff, to run an ad one time, to launch Macintosh, which was single-handedly one of the most valued, impressive brands, and Apple is one of the number one brands in the world. So if you think about it that way, that's something you could only do during Super Bowl. And honestly, when you think about who Macintosh was targeting, I still envision the computer nerd that maybe is not watching as much football as we think. So that's one that stands out to me for many reasons. There's a couple other ones on here. I think that whole .com era was really good. I think GoDaddy was really good at them around that time. And this is where it became kind of the fun way of, what are we trying to do? Well, we're a freaking website. So how do we drive them to the website? The goal was to drive them directly to the website. So Monster.com had a couple good ones. GoDaddy had a couple good ones. But again, that was a clear, tangible call to action. It was a lot harder for the Budweisers, right? What are they trying to accomplish?
Well, it was truly brand awareness. And just I double checked, it was 1995. It's the first year that ads crossed the $1 million threshold.
Man, so that's one of those.
And that's a 30-second.
That's one of those parabolic curves up for that cost. Because if it took that long to get to $1 million, but now it's only been 20 years to get to $6 million, man, that upward swing. And what has not changed is the total number of people watching. That has not changed very much since the 90s. So the fact that you're charging so much for it, I think it's, look, one of the things you'll notice, you're not going to see a lot of crypto ads in this Super Bowl, right? Like, let's call it what it is.
Oh my God, that was horrible.
What's going to replace crypto? Yeah. I mean, my bet is going to be something like healthcare, which is a booming industry, right? You'll probably start seeing, you had the oil companies leave for a little while, but all of a sudden with those $3 to $4 gallons of gas, you'll probably see the oil companies come back to it. So I look at it now as a marketer as to where I used to look at it as, I had a couple of drinks in me. I guess let's watch the commercials at halftime. Now as a marketer, I think it sees more overarching trends as to what's going on.
No, I think you'll see that. And we're not seeing as many, there was a period, I'm going to say 5 years ago, where the movie studios were pumping out ads. And look, the whole movie game has changed, so you're not going to be seeing that type of, you'll probably see a couple, but nothing huge.
Yeah. One of the biggest changes, actually, and I think this is ungodly important, and it's something we talk about all the time, you never used to see promotions for other things running on the station. You would never see promos for other programming on the stations. And the reason is because why would you waste inventory you could sell for a couple $1 million on your own stuff? Have you ever watched now? There is a promo for a show on Fox 3 times a break. When you think about how insane that is, but 2 things. One that decreases your supply, which increases your demand, which increases the price. So they know what they're doing there. But 2, well, what if that pulls in 20, 30, 50, 100,000 other viewers for shows that now last for 26 weeks. They found a way to make that up on the back end. So I think that's really important to acknowledge that, and we talk about it in radio, right? We don't do enough to promote the other activities we do because we think we're stealing audience.
But that's a plan, okay? And that's a strategy that they're saying we're going to invest this ad space now up front to build that revenue funnel.
Well, is it a plan or is it just copying the guy that did it first and saying, we probably have to do that?
Somebody had a strategy
at some point.
And then it worked. So, let's go back. So you mentioned the Apple that ran one time.
Yep.
The other one that shows up in a lot of top 20 ads, and again, I use this because it is it's the old way of doing things, but people still remember it. And every now and then I'll hear someone who say, well, we can copy this. And that was Master Lock. So they first came out in 1974, and if you remember, you'd have, I can't remember if it was Chuck, the rifleman, but someone who would shoot, a rifle through the lock, and it still held. Well, the beauty of that ad was they ran it one time a year, and they only ran it on the Super Bowl from 74, I think, for about 8 years until they couldn't afford it anymore. You can do that. They got such great exposure because, again, you had all the households then and people would remember it. But you can't do that nowadays. And every now and then I'll hear someone go, well, we're going to run this, we're going to, as you say, we're going to spend, $40,000 to produce this ad. And we're going to run it one time and hope it works. And you're like, audiences have changed. You're not going to get the eyeballs. You're not going to get people that are engaged. And so while it's on this top, 25 list, it is a bygone day, and you don't spend that money if you don't have a plan of how you're going to use your ads.
There's more competition everywhere now too, right? Master Lock has that brand name that is synonymous with locks, but there's a lot more people making locks. And one of the biggest things that has changed the nature of that is Amazon bringing an influx of Chinese products into the market, right? I mean, how hard is it to make a lock? Let's be honest here. I'm just saying, I get the security behind it and the kind of metal you use, but if you took a lock apart, honestly, if I had the right materials, I can probably rebuild the lock. Yep. So when Master Lock had that brand presence and you could only make it here, then it didn't matter if you were the only person running. You pretty much had a monopoly on the industry. Right. That doesn't exist nowadays. The only person that exists to some extent is Apple, who their products are their products, and they're not compared to other products. Yep. Right? There is competitive. Samsung is a competitor, but Apple people don't look at it that way. They're only Apple products. That's the closest thing I could think of in my head. And the other one is Heinz ketchup, because any other ketchup is just garbage, but that's just a personal preference. Let's do a couple other themes here. So let's go with 10-year-old Nick's favorite theme, which was, let's call it sexiness. Yes. Cindy Crawford, Pepsi, 1992. 10-year-old Nick, first of all, anytime she was on TV, let alone big screen TV, was just done. It was just over. That was that supermodel, beginning of that supermodel era for me. It was Kathy Ireland, it was Cindy Crawford, and it was just her on TV enough. There's one here, again, I wasn't born, but I still appreciate the fineness of Farrah Fawcett.
That's it, and Joe Namath.
And Joe Namath, of just her sexually rubbing.
I remember that when I saw it. I didn't remember, I'm sure I remembered it at the time. I would have been 8.
So here's a description of this. It says, this sleazy commercial is so full of innuendos that Joe Namath couldn't even keep a straight face while filming it. Yes. Yes. So everyone watch that right now. Broadway Joe, thank us for getting people to watch it again. But just that description is amazing.
People watched it again after the Susie Colbert incident about 5 years ago too. I think that brought it all back up.
Oh man.
It did. That's where I hadn't seen it for years till right after that incident. It kind of gave Noxzema a little bit of.
My goodness, was Namath renowned as a Jets. He is renowned just for a lot of those things. Yeah. What about some other themes? So let's throw out a classic.
Let's go
one.
humor.
Yeah.
Okay. So. And I will say you hit on it before. Doritos did something, and here's something different. not only were the ads hysterical, but they went public the year they gave everyone a chance to create a Super Bowl ad.
Yep.
And I think they ran 5 ads. I think 3 of them were consumers who won, and the 2 were 2 that they designed. And it was brilliant in that the fact that, okay, maybe they spent, $25 million on the ad placements and the production and all that, but they got about 2 months worth of
content.
Not free advertising, but leading up and then after.
Yep.
And so they really created this community, and that's what they wanted to be. And I can't remember how long they did it, but I think it was 3 or 4 years. I just thought the strategy was brilliant.
Yeah, and I think Doritos, one of the things that changed was the mid-'90s, I think. I think people started getting a little bit more embracing of that, like, stoner culture.
Yeah.
Like, people knew when you ate Doritos. I mean, it wasn't like something you're hiding anymore. So bringing that humor in and having them throwing the vending machine and those kind of doofy guys that are chasing after the Doritos wasn't so faux pas anymore, and it actually was really fun to see.
And so one of the things they did, so here's a great example for businesses out there. If you think you have some different audiences, all right, how do you go about it? So one of the things I remember with that is, let's say there were 3 different ads that were created by consumers. One of them might have been that more stoner, young adult crowd.
For sure.
Right? They still at times would have the sexy one.
Right,
all right.
you have to.
But then they always had a kid-oriented one. I remember the one about the Dorito being thrown all the way down the train or bus or whatever, right into someone's mouth. They found a way to connect with different types of audiences, but through a platform.
For sure. Established nostalgia is always going to be one. I mean, right? You're connecting back because it's probably that moment you see it, you go, you know what? I haven't had Doritos in years.
Yeah.
And you pop open a bag. You probably can't eat the whole thing like you used to, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So the other one I like in the comedy category, and I think it's on here. If not, it was on one I saw, was really kind of the kickoff. I don't know if it was the very first Snickers ad that used celebrities, and you're hungry, but was the Betty White.
Yeah.
The Betty White flag football.
See, I don't remember if that was Super Bowl or launched before it. That's part of the problem with these ads. It ran so far after that, but yes,
it did run during the Super Bowl. You're right.
I just don't know if it was a Super Bowl ad or they just ran it. That's where the lines have been blurred a little bit.
Right. Well, and probably 4 or 5 years ago is when you started to see some of these ads actually pop up before the Super Bowl. And then they would potentially run in the Super Bowl.
That's where it gets blurred. But that was an absolute great one.
Yeah,
and anything with she's in is fantastic. But I think that Snickers campaign, I think they've been phenomenal marketers.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of those things, like, I will reach for a Snickers every now and then. I don't touch any other candy. Yeah. But for some reason, and again, it's delicious.
Cold
it's delicious,
Snickers.
man.
I'm sorry. On the golf course, back 9, if it's cold in the drink cart, I will grab one.
And honestly,
that's
like,
my
if you
guilty pleasure.
At least there's peanuts in it. Like, at least there's some redeeming quality. So I think that's a really good one.
Yeah.
One of the ones that stands out to me, and I'm trying to find it on here, was Ray Charles, the Right One Baby.
Yeah.
And he had the girls behind him, and it was right in the middle of the Gulf War, and I vividly remember that. Now, I grew a fonder appreciation of Ray Charles as I got older, and especially as I moved down to Georgia, my goodness.
Yeah.
But I remember that one. I remember because I remember the view of it, like the old TV. Remember how it was kind of washed out looking? Because you didn't have the technology you have now. So it was kind of washed looking. I think that's another one, and I think that's another trend is bringing in the big name actors, and if you're going to do this the right way, and have the big names behind it. I remember one recently. Do you remember the one? It was like 2 or 3 years ago with Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis.
Yes.
With Shaggy singing "It Wasn't Me" in the background. They had the crumbs all over their face. I mean, that kind of one was, because first of all, Kunis and Ashton Kutcher were together on that '70s show. They've been married for a long time. They both seem like cool people. It seemed like an argument that you're like, wait a second, like you have that with a significant other. So I thought that one was a great one. But it's been named countless times throughout here of when you use those celebrities to really amplify it.
Yeah. So let's go another path, and it's not. I don't see it on here. I did see it on one other list, the top 25, but. Another way of engaging your clients, and I think this is a great strategy for people is, look, you got 30 seconds, do you have the ability to keep pumping this out over and over? Maybe not, but you can't go the 1 or 2 times. And that was, I think GoDaddy was the first one. Nissan did it later. but it would be stay tuned for the rest of the video. Go to godaddy.com/whatever. And it was a brilliant way of, hey, we're going to have one ad. Danica was one of the first ones.
Yep.
They had a lot of different people.
Yep.
But then they drove people to their website. In fact, the very first time it happened, they actually crashed the website.
Yeah.
I want to say that was like 2010, maybe?
Yeah.
Somewhere
Yes.
in that range.
And the time right is right.
Yeah.
That's when you had 3G on phones and you were
Yeah.
able to mobily look that up, because otherwise it's worthless, right?
Right.
Nobody by the time you had that is going to a computer to run. So you're talking the advent of a mobile phone where
Right.
you had internet connection all the time.
Right.
And not only that, you probably had a website that was optimized for the mobile phone. Otherwise, that's worthless. So that's
Right.
a matter of timing.
So, but the beauty is, okay, here's a way you build something. You're paying a lot of money up front, but how do you get legs out of it? How do you drive more interest? How do you get deeper messages? And so that's what they did. And then Nissan really was the same thing. They were doing stunts with the cars, and trying to get across. I mean, Nissan to me was the performance engines, not as expensive as European, but so, how did it finish? If the car was in the middle of the air or whatever, how did this finish? And so they also drove people, to get, again, more engagement, to get true enthusiasts. And I think that's, not that you have to, only put part of the ad out there, but if you've got a compelling story, it's a great way to do it. But think of it as a way to engage and bring people either to your website or to your app or something that creates more use than a single ad.
What was it? Was it Coinbase? Somebody gave away like $10 million in crypto right in the middle of this year, and it crashed every website. And somebody now, it's probably worth $18 now, unfortunately. But because there are some cryptocurrencies that are worth nothing, that were completely rocking $2-3 a piece that are worth nothing. But that was another example. Yeah, people are going to go do it. Yeah. But again, do you realize if 100 million people are watching and half of them play, your odds are almost nothing. But still, I mean, you're listening a response. And I think now what's going to happen, those used to be driving you to a website, maybe a landing page. Yeah. Now it's going to drive you to a customized experience for you, because you can click on a link on the phone. Right. Your phone is usually connected to your TV, so you can click a button there and it'll come to your phone automatically. So I think that AR, I don't think we're there yet, but I think it's going to start fitting in. And I think a lot more people are going to watch things like the Super Bowl on internet. And I say that because it's just better quality. Right. A good connection is going to look better on the internet, especially the way these TVs are built, than the TV ever would. The anti-aliasing is better. It's just better suited. The HDR, it doesn't exist on television broadcast. So I think as people watch digitally more, that marketing amplification is going to be there. The question is going to be, is Fox going to be responsible for it? Or are you going to go out of pocket again and now have to pay another party to implement this and jack that price up even further?
Yeah, so another theme, and I will go ahead and right now say, I think you have to be careful, unless we've got listeners that are big corporations and have lots of money. I don't think you can use the shock theme in your traditional advertising. Now, think about it from a Super Bowl perspective. We've had, the what was it? The blank screen, or the screen with the, just the warning, and basically it moved people to a website. Oat milk, was it last year or the year before? It was so bad, it was shocking. But then they actually got a lot of play from that because people wanted to check it out. So the reason I say I don't think that's a good theme for most people is they worked because you had so many eyeballs on the Super Bowl. If you try to run, quote, the bad ad or that shocking ad across your normal campaign, we all have too many things going, and I think you lose people. It worked because people were there to watch.
And they only had to watch it once.
Right, only had to watch it once, and then they didn't leave because that in that 4 minutes,
they're completely engaged.
There's going to be three more ads. So you're like, okay, well, I want to see the next. As bad as this one is, and that
I agree
oat milk was bad, you stayed with it because you wanted to watch the next ad.
I agree with you. I also think that, let's be honest, how much can you do with oat milk? I mean, it's not like it's the sexiest product on earth that you're going for. Like, you either like oat milk or you don't. So trying to rile up the people to get you over there, how much harm could come out of it? Such a niche product. I mean, honestly, I know a lot of people drink oat milk. Yeah. But really, how many people have we met that are like, you know what I really love? Yeah. Oat milk. Yeah, I know. Not many people.
But people, for their defense, because it was such a
do you think they did it on purpose, though? Do you think they made it a bet? Do you think somebody at some level was like, look, this is really dumb. Let's try it. Or do you think they thought they had a good ad and it just happened to be? I mean, I'd be curious.
That I'm not sure. Because
get somebody from oat milk on the phone.
On the last segment, we're going to talk about someone who is brilliant at creating bad ads. ads.
We need Oat Milk on the phone. Somebody from Oat Milk, call,
right, we're gonna
please.
Get,
Let's get it
happen.
Let's make it happen.
Madmen in the future.
Let's make it happen.
But I think that's an area that you have to be careful. And there have been some that have been done on purpose to be bad.
Yeah.
But usually it's a little more tongue in cheek. Maybe Snoop Dogg's in it or something like that. So
yeah, you can't go wrong with Snoop in it. I don't know how the hell that guy did it, but him and Martha Stewart together is one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Like, they genuinely look like they love each other. It is the most bizarre thing to watch them. And we know the only thing they have in common, it's the same thing we talked about earlier with the Doritos commercials.
Yeah.
They both like to partake in some greenery, but man, they are funny together. So, if it works, man, sometimes repetition and just doing something over and over again.
And the last thing before we hit the break is, for the most part, if you're authentic with your influencers and you can see them in the brand some way or another, that's the key. It's when you start bringing people in that just aren't authentic.
Yeah.
And I think, we could talk about crypto forever, but, I think they tried to get big names, tried to get sports and entertainment names. And I think the struggle was, unfortunately people followed them, but there wasn't the credibility.
But they did the job. They had built up so much demand that it drove all the prices through the roof because everyone wanted to buy at the same time. What they didn't realize was there was no backing of the entire system, and it was built on a house of cards that ultimately kept needing to be fed that demand to go up. And once that demand comes out, the floor comes out below it. So that's not the Super Bowl commercial's fault.
Absolutely.
That's just crypto as an industry.
We'll keep this rolling on the next segment. You've been listening to Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3.
Now back to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3 FM.
Welcome back. Trip Job and Nick Constantino here on the Marketing Madmen, talking about Super Bowl and Super Bowl ads. And one other tactic we'll hit on, and then we'll talk a little bit about the advertisers that are going to be on tomorrow, and maybe give our thoughts on that. But the one other tactic is aligning yourself and doing some pre-work and having people believe you're going to be in the Super Bowl. And using today with social media, digital channels, other ads that might run right before the Super Bowl, pregame, might run the day before, things like that, and you get people talking about it. And to me, the master in the last 5 years has been Ryan Reynolds. And I'm not sure that Ryan Reynolds has run that many true broadcast ads. But whether it's Mint Mobile, whether it's Aviation Gin, I have seen so many ads that get propped up and hit social media the week of, Super Bowl.
Yep.
And rumors that they're going to be on, and then they're never on, but the views, they're getting millions and millions of views.
Yeah, there's lots of ways to do it too, right?
Yeah.
What if your commercial just runs after all the promos for Super Bowl? I mean, there's clever ways. We do it at the radio station, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you don't want to be a Braves advertiser, but maybe you want to be the last commercial that runs right before we go into Braves. There's lots of ways to do it. And I think Ryan Reynolds is a very smart marketer. I think he's made himself into one. I think also he is not one of those people that just comes across as just a genuine person that like you believe him. You don't feel like you're being scammed. I mean, he's got a lovely wife. They seem super happy together. Like you don't feel like you're being scammed.
He's Canadian.
That must be why. He's of no threat. He's of no threat. He's afraid of the dark. He's Canadian. He's of no threat to anybody. That's got to be why. That's my mistake. Now that it's clear, but that has a lot to do with it, right? If a big corporation's lying to you, you might be pissed off. If you find out that they were saying they were going to be in Super Bowl to get a rise that you're not there, but like it's Ryan Reynolds, you're like, I guess we'll give him this one. And what did he do? Sold Aviation Gin, and he's about to sell Mint Mobile.
Right.
So he's doing something, and those paychecks are going to be.
He's got Mountain, which is a marketing agency, and I think the one plug for. If you're thinking about it and thinking about ways, make sure you're working with, a good agency out there. We've had, if you haven't listed, go to the our podcast. We've had several this year discussions with agencies, both B2C and B2B. And really, I think the beauty of having Blue Sky and Conquer and Moto on was they talked a little bit about what you should be asking, the things that are helpful, if you're looking to work with an agency.
Yeah,
so
they were all great, and that's a good reminder, guys. Go to just Google the Marketing Madmen. We come up in the top 3 things. Go to the Apple, go to any podcast page, all the archive of all episodes. I think we're pushing on 80, 82 episodes now, so there's a lot there. So if you enjoyed this, go back and look, because again, these are tips and tricks, and the agencies, well, go back and listen to a couple of them because it'll give you some good ideas. But you are right. I mean, when you're spending that much money, you need to bring the right creative in, and you again need that ancillary outside set of eyes. Because you may think you have the best oat milk ad ever, and then someone sees it and goes, "This is so bad that it's good. Run it."
Yeah.
So you need that second set of eyes for sure.
All right, so let's spend the last couple minutes. So I've got a list of advertisers who we're going to be on. So Pepsi Zero Sugar. That's its new improved drink. Pringles. So there are a couple, let's see here, in the food and drink category. Hellman's mayonnaise. I'm just looking at the ones that are
and consumer
related.
staples makes
Doritos.
Consumer staples makes a ton of sense to me, right? Because as everybody else, what happens when you even think of recession? People don't go out to eat as much. People come back home. Those things, those kind of comfort things that you believed in. And again, I don't want to have the R word conversation again because I'm tired of it. I feel like we're in it and we're just denying it because politicians want to stop people saying it. But Hellman's makes so much sense to me, doesn't it? To you,
Right.
Like that thought of not going out to eat and just having mayo, like it just those trends. The more you kind of pull out the layers, make a ton of sense. This is not rocket science,
Right. So here's an interesting one. I heard this coming into was Pepsi, Frito-Lay, actually is kind of promoting their new popcorners, popcorn in a bag with Aaron Paul from Breaking Bad.
Interesting.
And so they just released it, I think, this week. So it's going to be curious. But that's getting a lot of, we talked about all of a sudden kind of seeding it out there.
Yep.
So that one's getting a lot of play. Now, in this case, Frito-Lay is trying to catch up to everybody else in the popcorn, world.
I think more importantly, Pepsi's got a lot of ground to cover. Pepsi let go of the halftime show for the first time in 20 years, and remember how often that show was promoted. So Pepsi leaving means they have to stake that ground because that is one of the last bastions of ownership that Pepsi had was the NFL and the Super Bowl. So it's going to be really interesting to see what they do to counter it. Now, I've spoken with some Pepsi guys, and I think the plan is, we're done with those big advertising pushes. We are a sales company. We need things tied directly to sales. Let's see what happens. The stock's doing well. One of the other ones I saw on trends is what are the gambling sites going to do, right? Because there's so much.
So DraftKings is, it looks like they're doing something with Molson Coors.
Yeah, I was setting myself up to answer. It was rhetorical. I was setting myself up to answer my own question, but they're doing a Coors Light versus Miller Light, and it's a big debate, and you're going to place money on who's going to be the first ad, how long it's going to be, how many people are going to be in the bar. So they're letting prop bets go on an ad between Molson and Coors. So for the first time, they're announcing that Miller and Coors are owned by the same company. I know some people know that, but that's Molson Coors, which owns SAB Miller. It's so convoluted now. So the other one that is going to be massive is Gronk is going to kick a field goal in a live commercial break for people to win $1 million for FanDuel. So they're getting really, really interactive at this point, and they have to, man. Oh my goodness, how many betting ads can you see? And I was listening to a podcast yesterday. All they're doing is cannibalizing each other's business, because if you can get $500 in free bets from 8 different companies, that's $4,000 in free bets. Why would you ever stay with one? So they're just cannibalizing each other. Great for the bettors. I mean, if you want to go make some free money, there's a way to do it, but not so great for the companies trying to actually turn a profit for the first time ever.
Exactly. So a couple others, the traditional beer companies and all. I saw the first set of ads already, the M&Ms with Maya, and the first one started out great. It's getting really annoying in my opinion. Yeah. With the latest one. So the
M&Ms are another one with an uphill battle, man. I know they got this cultural part behind them, their stores and stuff, but that is just not good for you. There's no part of an M&M that is going to ever be good for you, and I think that they're losing some of that. My kids I will not let them eat M&Ms. I'd rather them eat ice cream, because at least ice cream's got milk and a couple things in it. So that might be that might be a kind of a perception thing too.
Here's another one that will probably hit big, because it's been on the list before and it came back last year. E-Trade's got the baby again.
Yep.
So last year was the first year after it had taken a few years off. So the E-Trade baby's back.
Yep. And you remember why they did that in the first place? Because E-Trade was going to offer free trades for the first time, and now everyone offers free trades. So I'm curious to see what they can do different to make it stand out.
Yeah. Not a lot of car ads. So General Motors is they're with Netflix doing a 60-second ad, which will have Will Ferrell. So
the brands have turned more to halo ads here.
Yeah.
Remember the Hummer one? They're not doing the Ford Explorer. They're doing the future model that you might not even be able to buy for 5 years. That's become more of from a brand presence, it makes sense. You're not trying to sell cars there. You're trying to get people excited about the brand.
Yeah. And then there'll be a few, I saw Uber, Tubi, Rakuten, so e-commerce, e-platform type companies out there. So it's definitely a mix this year. I definitely did not see any of the film, releases and stuff along those lines. So it should be fun. Sense. I mean, we'll see what maybe one of the future episodes we'll do a quick review of what we thought, and also what some of the what they still have the ad meter afterwards. So.
Yeah, we should we should record ourselves on video critiquing every break after it's done.
Yeah, no,
I'll have too many drinks in myself. I'll be in the Bahamas. No way.
All right, we'll do We'll do a couple of them. We'll hit a couple and do that maybe next week when we come back. So this has been fun. Again, appreciate Joe Ham coming on, talking a little bit about the Super Bowl. Hopefully you got a little bit of an idea of things to think about when you're putting together your ad program. And most importantly, you got a sneak peek and see what's on tomorrow on the Super Bowl ads. Enjoy them. And as always, we're the Marketing Madmen, and we'll be back next week. You've been listening on Extra 106.3.
Tonight in Arkansas, there's a mother tucking in her daughter and turning off the light. A business owner's burning the midnight oil. An at-home dinner date is plating up possibility. And it's all happening under one roof. How? The power of a conversation, like the one John from Integrity Solutions had with First Horizon Bank about his vision for a sustainable mixed-use building. Now it's not just words, it's life. First Horizon Bank. Let's find a way. Go to firsthorizon.com/John. First Horizon Bank, member FDIC.